South, but most of my presidency is known for my cabinet's many scandals. I went from the best Civil War general to one of the worst presidents in our country's history. Great. Raise your hand.
Well, I was talking to myself and I didn't realize how loud I was.
It's all right, I'm fine, I'm not crazy. Coming mother, you know that kind of thing. All right. I'm the system where landowner would rent his or her land for a share or portion of the cross profit. The landowner would give the person tools and seeds for the field. Share profit. Share profit. Yep. For share profit.
Yeah.
5. I am the political party who wanted to destroy the political power of former slave holders and give full citizenship of African Americans. I was led by Charles Sumner and Thaddeus Stevens. The radical Republicans. I was a federal agency set up to help former slaves after the Civil War. I was ended in 1873, but while I was active, I helped immigrant newly freed population. Thanks, Clan.
Freedmen's Bureau.
Freedmen's Bureau. All right, flip it. This is where it looks like everyone loses their minds. Freedmen's Bureau. Bureau. B-U-R-E-A-U. Bureau. B-U-R-E-A-U.
That's a lot of vowels.
You're welcome. What was a system in which farm workers supply their own tools and rent farmland for cash money, making it clean? Right. Be tenant farming. Good. Tenant farming.
He's so funny.
I'm the constitutional amendment that permanently and forever abolished slavery within the United States. Forever, ever. 13.
We just put 13.
What was the first African American senator in the United States history? His initials were HR, but not off the stuff. It's a 1970.
Great.
That's a weird with medical talking about that's weird. You know? HR. No. No. No.
Areas.
Oh my God.
Lost.
All right.
No, don't get to us, but hang
Yep.
Let's come down to.
Ow!
Area. Horse racer. We'll take turns. Horse racer. C. H.
And
Not again. What?
Why wouldn't you say
Yes.
Why wouldn't you say
That really
My
bad
bad.
skill video.
Yeah.
haven't played in a while.
Oh,
Hey, you did that.
Oh, come on. I didn't say
Q.
Fucker.
Stop. H. H.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Draw a head.
You draw the
She was like new when
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
there.
Yeah, she's
Oh.
Come on. So what has O?
Definitely an R in there. What do you mean what has everything is O?
Vowel C.
You just guessed the R. You said the initials are HR. You guys are.
R.
You guys are. Where the starts with an R? I swear.
Did we already get three?
Come on.
I guess the vowels first. That's just
It is Hiram.
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 I knew it.
M.
Hiram.
You're gonna tell me he knows. Read. Ooh. Roof.
Read.
Rebels.
No.
Rebels.
I didn't get rebels. You know
Hey, you left out a
Oh, I
thing.
did.
My paper.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good.
I looked them up online.
Right?
I think it was
I'm
Hiram.
I'm the constitutional amendment that formally gives every legal citizen equal protection of federal laws. Which one? I heard 14 and you're 15. Who says 14?
Second Amendment.
Who says 15? You're wrong. It's 14. Okay, I'm the constitutional amendment that gives all men, no matter their ethnicity, religion, etc., the right to vote in all elections. That is. I was a term used by for a northerner who moved to the South after the Civil War. What's that? No. Carpetbag.
Told you.
Carpet bag.
Told him. He said scallywag.
Was that? The whole premise was that they moved so quickly, all they could pack was a carpet bag, which is basically cheap luggage. So if this was modern, it would be drawstring bag. Which is always a great historical term to draw string Alright, last one. I was the term used for a Democrat from the South changing parties to the Republicans for political advantage. It's a pirate phrase. Scallywag.
100 points.
Don't they show
Oh, yeah.
this to like the office first and then watch it?
I take that.
Yes.
Do they watch it?
I don't think so.
I'll get that fixed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I did the electronic.
We used to have Nikolai.
Doesn't it show our final grades?
Yeah, he died.
You put a different grade at e-back than you did in that classroom, from what I said. It's only 2 points for this one.
What was the score in your back?
I don't know if I want to say that. Alright, I got 80 in the background. We put 78 in that classroom.
Okay, fixed.
Thank you.
Change your grade 0.
Always look better.
I just had, I want to talk to you about this.
Yes!
I'm leaving, like,
Only 4 seasons on a report card, bro.
Wait, yours is done? It's in my class?
Dude, I squeaked out on that test. We're gonna be 4.5.
Oh, I didn't turn mine in on eBay.
Killy, 73.
Wait, Sasha, what you get?
On the Killy?
Yeah.
73.
Oh my god.
You're stupid.
That was hard.
I got 80.
That was like the.
I'm smarter than
well,
No, you're not.
I'm much smarter than
No, you're not.
By a landslide.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Sasha, what was your final grade?
You're not though. Like,
86.
What?
you have 94.
How do you kick?
I got an 86 and I still had me.
We'll see who's richer.
I don't know if they want to do.
This is background.
That's gonna be a lie.
In Spanish?
Right, but you got put this. Actually, go to 89. You're gonna get a C.
Alright, so where did we finish up?
Are we trying to say?
Yeah, make sure your name's on the passport. Where did we leave off? No way.
Oh, my 1880.
Clam?
We ended at the Ku Klux Klan War.
Yo, let's go. Come on. Focus. Thank you. Focus.
Anthony was soccer every
But if you do have grade discrepancies, there's mistakes, talk to me individually, okay? Don't go giggle gang on me, okay? What just happened? Your monster? Is that like around there and there? Is that around there? That's They're really mature kind of stuff. Please tell me that's not recorded. That's definitely recorded, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Alright, pick things back up. Grant's administration is going to go into all-out war against the Klan, and by 1880, the Klan essentially wiped out of the United States. Now, we obviously know the Klan is still there. If you want to, you can still go to their website. Their website has changed their motivations, though. Like I said, there's 3 generations of Klan. The first one's this paramilitary organization. The second one is basically anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant, still anti-African American. Third generation now believes that that the white European population of the United States is in danger, and their plan is to now defend and protect white genocide, which I don't quite know what that means, but it's the thought that counts. Sounds scary, right? Go ahead.
Is there still like KKK around here?
In Erie? I know there
think my neighbors are
I know there's
KKK
pockets
members.
throughout Pennsylvania, primarily western Pennsylvania, around the Pittsburgh area. It's really prominent. not like you're like, walking down the street and it's like, oh, there's a Klansman, but more or less like there are organizations out there, yes. I don't know if there's one here. I would see it.
Preston Burke is
The pride floor.
said they found land.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. The thing is, and I don't know if you guys know this, if you do not know, Erie's one of the most segregated cities still in the United States.
How do they know that?
What's that?
How do they know that?
Because of where people live and why they live there. Essentially, the difference between east and west in certain locations. I mean, think about it. More or less, Upper West Side is a predominantly, obviously not all, predominantly white population, and Lower East Side is predominantly mostly first-generation immigrant African American and minority groups. Predominantly, obviously it's not all, right? But there is definitely a divide. And the other thing is, in all reality, is that the funding for Lower East Side really doesn't get much, and the Upper West Side is still being expanded. And actually, right now, what's interesting is they're actually trying to expand and kind of revitalize the East Side. So we'll get there. Go ahead.
Did you see on 12th Street, like right where the connector comes down and like there's that four-way intersection? They started rebuilding all the roofs on all those like.
That's good. That's good.
I don't know if that means like, do you think they can start something like there?
I hope so. They're just trying to rebuild. So I know Harbor Creek's actually becoming pretty well spread out with commerce and stuff. One of the things that another kind of aspect of this Reconstruction era is Jesse James. I don't know how much you know Jesse James. If anything, you probably think like, isn't he the motorcycle chopper guy, right? Jesse James, and you don't have to get this down. I just want you to kind of have some background on this. Jesse James is the most famous, we'll call it bandit train robber in the United States. When he was 14, he wants to go into the Confederate Army. Mom says no. Dad goes off into the war. At the age of 16, he goes into a Missouri militia, fights with basically a guerrilla band of people. He gets shot through both arms, survives, has to swear an oath to allegiance, and gets banned out of his home state of Missouri. He then goes into train robbing and bank robbing the state of Missouri for pro-union and pro-Republican banks. We know for a fact from 66 to 72 throughout the newspapers, he knocks over a dozen major banks and about 10 major train robberies. We know for a fact he killed at least 31 people. When he did these train robberies and these bank robberies, he would do it in broad daylight. So he would literally come into a town, possibly pop off the police, go into the bank, force them to open up the safe, he'd kill everyone in the bank, and his gang would leave. His gang was about 12 people. I mean, this is some pretty crazy stuff. Now, what shows the Reconstruction aspect is the newspapers, pro-Democrat, pro-Klan, okay, are actually going to support James' bank robberies because they come up with this mythology that he's robbing from these rich Republican banks and giving to poor people. He does none of that, ever, okay? He never gives any money to anyone. He's basically knocking off people and making himself filthy rich. Well, go ahead.
Is this like Back to the Future 3 era? The train route?
The Back to the Future 3 is 1880s, so it's just after this. The same, like, generic era, give or take, okay? 1882, basically prior to the FBI, 1882, the Pinkerton agency was going to be hired by the government. They're going to convince one of his gang members to sabotage him while he's lighting the candles on the chandelier of his dining room table. They blow his head off, kill him. And that's the end of Jesse James. And he becomes this like superhero. People start making like comic books about his exploits. People start kind of making him sound really cool. His brother, who was a part of the gang, joins the Buffalo Bill Wild West show, and they recreate classic train robbery scenes in stadiums. It's really, really weird that people like this. His mother even does tours of his grave, and for an extra 50 cents, you can get a stone from his grave And every night she'd just get more stones and dump it on the grave, okay? So it's really weird how people really got into the mythology of this, honest to goodness, just murderer. Yeah.
So what was the Pinkerton agency?
Pinkerton Agency was basically this private company where was like hired security.
Oh, so
So you needed a hired gun, you call them up, and it gets done. Is it legal? No. Is there blood? Yes.
How did the government? How
What's
were
that?
they able to hire them?
Because the government had money. And they're like, hey, this guy's causing humongous problems with both our trains and banks. Get this guy killed, and they do. Tom?
Are you gonna email me the notes?
Yeah.
Okay, good now.
Yeah, you're good. Now, Grant's presidency. Let me get this down, get the Grant top and then the 2 bolts. People have been saying, especially in the news, oh my gosh, we've never had a president that had no political experience. This is crazy. False, okay? There has been various people throughout our country's history that have not had political backgrounds prior to becoming president, okay? The last one was in 1952. Anyone know who it is? The last president to not have political experience.
Teddy Roosevelt.
1952.
Eisenhower.
Wait.
What's up, Tom?
Wait, wasn't that?
No, Eisenhower.
Truman.
Never mind. I was wrong.
Truman.
Quinn, can you raise your hand like a human being? Yes, Quinn.
Truman.
No, you were right the first time. It was Eisenhower.
Eisenhower.
Now look at you, looking at sources.
Why?
This is actually pretty cool. This poster I found in the back of a library in North Carolina. And it only goes in 1960. Kennedy hasn't even become the president yet. That's why I like the poster. It's very dated. I don't even know what kind of printer you come up with that thing. Man, that thing's massive. Awkwardly massive.
Probably a big thing.
Thank you, Ethan. Very good. Very good. That's why they pay you the big bucks. Now, somebody asked me this question. If you're a general of an army, how do you get things accomplished as an army general? How does that work? Understand, Hunter? Right. How do you win, Hunter? That's why I'm asking. You do good tactics, okay? How do you do that as a general?
A good mind.
What's that?
A smart person, a good mind.
Okay, well, you gotta be smart, yes, but how does this actually get accomplished on the battlefield? You've got 100,000 people plus on a battlefield, moving around, being killed and killing people, okay? How does a general maintain that army doing those activities? What must he have? Because he can't do everything by himself, so he needs what? You know?
It's like it'd be like him owning like a restaurant and then having a bunch of managers. Kind of.
Right, who is his managers?
Cabinet.
No, I'm talking about.
Oh, in the war.
Other generals, right? So you've got one general up here, okay, who's in charge of other generals. He has subordinates, okay? That's how Grant runs his presidency. You guys are right, okay? So him as president, he's now going to use his cabinet as the primary focus for his stuff. So he says, I want this done. Secretary of State, get it done, okay? And he tries to get this stuff done, okay? The downside here is this. The people he chooses are not people on his or her, or not his allies. They're people that the Republicans want in his cabinet. What generally happens when you have people in high power who have no connection to the leader? What's that? Nothing gets done. That can be one. That definitely can happen. Okay, what else? Are they going to listen to that leader directly? Maybe not, okay? And that's the issue here, is they're going to get things done, but to benefit themselves. Yeah.
If the entire cabinet's like one-sided, then what stops them from all like banding together and saying that the government gave them this?
There is actually a clause in the what is it? I think it's definitely an executive clause. They changed it to the 12th Amendment. There is a clause that basically states if the cabinet does not believe the president is of sound or sane mind, the cabinet has to have a 3/4 majority of they can actually overthrow the president, put him in these eastern processes, and at that time, appoint the vice president as the leader.
So the cabinet could just do whatever they wanted if they all sort of together.
Basically, yeah. So that's why the president needs to make very sure when he handpicks these people, that he picks the people that are going to back him and not all of a sudden overthrow. So many people in the South felt Grant's presidency looked like this, okay? Now, kind of a weird picture, okay? So you've got the South, solid South, I'm stunned, okay, there we go. The solid South right here, carrying a carpet bag and bayonet rule. What's that mean? Who is the South now having to have the burden of? Well, who are carpetbaggers? The Northerners, okay? And then what do you think it means by bayonet rule? Those are the knives and the guns.
They're illegal now, aren't they? Aren't they, that's like not allowed after?
Well, 1877 of the Geneva Convention. We're not there just yet. What does it mean by bayonet rule? Look at the picture. Who's also in the South? There you go, military, okay? So you've got Northerners in the South burdening the Southerners. You've got the Army in the South burdening the Southerners. And then you've got Grant, who looks like Napoleon Bonaparte, all kind of weighing down the South, okay? And so a lot of this is really, really causing a lot of trouble for the South. And they're going to be pushing back. Let me get the Republicans are going to split, and they're going to appoint with the Democrats one of the best newspaper reporters of the time, Horace Greeley. If you ever want to see a really scary person, just look up Horace Greeley. He has a neck beard that could be replaced as a scarf. It's pretty terrifying. Grant wins the second term, but it's a really, really one-sided election. Grant wins easily. Here's the catch, though. The newspapers and the White House make sure that Grant's scandals that are starting to come out in 1872 and 71 do not become public information. And because of this, he gets in easily. If this comes out during the election, there's a possibility that Grant becomes a one-term president here. Does anyone know why most presidents do not like their second term in office? I'll take a guess on that. Why do presidents not like that second term, that extra 4 years? You think they'd like it because now you kind of got used to the job, and now you can do what you think you can do whatever you want. Why do most presidents not like that second term in office? Us?
Isn't it harder for things to get passed?
Why?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not just one thing, but it's true. Most of the time, the second term, the presidents have a harder time to get things passed, or it's the opposite. They get a big turnout, and now they can get things actually easier to be passed. And most presidents do not like their second term. Can I have a guess why? What does everyone in the country and everyone that opposed you now know about you after 4 years? Think about it like this way. Your football team, your baseball team, whatever. You play the same team 10 times. What do you now know about that team? Their strategies? What else do you know? You definitely know if they're good or not, right? So eventually you're going to pick up on what? The W. Weaknesses. You are going to know their weaknesses. If you know the president's weaknesses by year 4, the second term, you can just poke and poke and poke and poke, right? And that's the same thing here. Most presidents, you like their second term. I'd like to get down Grant's failures there. I would like to get those top 2 runs. The credit mobilier scandal and the whiskey ring scandal. Grant's going to get busted for multiple scandals. Now, are scandals generally illegal activity in the White House?
Yeah.
Yes. Did he commit it, though, the president? Does he have to commit it with a scandal? No. Could be his cabinet, could be someone within the executive branch. Yeah. So that's what scandals are. I mean, for goodness gracious, there's a whole TV show about it, right? Now, what happens here with the credit mobilier scandal is, Grant's cabinet has found out that the Pacific Railroad companies have been expanding their railroad tracks. And what happens here is the Department of the Interior makes a major mistake. They say, Mr. Business, how much would it cost to make these railroads? Okay? What's the problem with asking a business how much it would cost to do things without knowing how much
They lie.
the pay are? They're going to lie, okay? And so the company's like, it's gonna cost millions, right? And so the government's like, well, do what you gotta do, okay? Think about that, especially with some car mechanics. You don't really know them really well. Suddenly you're like, wow, how did this become $1,000? Same thing here. They're basically like, oh, well, the cost was this, and then we find out that the railroad actually doubled the fee compared to what it actually cost. And this becomes a major problem. Then you have the whiskey ring scandal. Tax agents were bribed by whiskey distilleries to not have to pay the excise tax on liquor.
Dude, how's that Grant's fault?
It's not, but it happens under his watch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
Similar to President Obama with Benghazi. Right?
Oh.
Was it directly his fault? Was he the one not making the phone call? No. Does it get put on his weight? Yes. Okay. Also, like the whole Fast and Furious scandal that happened. Did anyone hear about the Fast and Furious scandal? You'll love it. Fast and Furious scandal. U.S. CIA tries to infiltrate the drug industry inside of Mexico and other parts of Latin America. How do we do it? Ship them guns and follow the barcodes on the guns. So what do the drug agencies do? They just scratch off all the barcodes and take all the guns. Yeah. Wah, wah. Go ahead. Yeah. So even though it's not the president's fault directly, Dominic, the catch here is that it's under his watch, and so he takes the wheel.
Okay.
So, president's now in trouble with a whole bunch of these scandals. Congress is now rolling back major parts of legislation. I'd like to get these two acts down. The Amnesty Act. Because of congressional reconstruction, they said no Confederate officers or officials could vote or run office. The Amnesty Act is going to give 800 people who were former Confederate generals and officials back their voting rights and government abilities. Now, what political party in the 1860s would propose and pass that kind of bill? What political party? Which one? Republican or Democrat?
Democrat.
The Democrat. Okay, so the Democratic Party is getting more power here, and they get this passed. 1873, because again, both Southern Democratic influence and also the cost of the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau, which was supposed to go on until 1900, is going to be cut off, and they're going to end the Freedmen's Bureau. So now people who are getting education, people who are getting funding, people who are getting jobs, people who are getting food from the Freedmen's Bureau, all of a sudden are no longer getting those services. So African American people who have not found basically normal constructive life yet because of post-slavery life are now in a big struggle here. Go ahead, Ethan.
so what were the countries in Europe doing during all this time? Like, what was their stance?
Stand on what?
Everything that's happened, like the Civil War. Like I know.
Okay, so to make a large story short, Britain and France wanted to watch us crumble. Okay, why? Does anyone know what's going on in Mexico in the 1860s? Mexico has been taken over by Britain, France, and Spain, and they put a European dictator in. Okay, have you ever heard of Cinco de Mayo, which is May 7th, correct?
May 5th.
May 5th, excuse me. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, is when Mexico gets their independence back from this European regime that comes in the 1860s. So Europe is trying to basically bring more influence into the Gulf of Mexico and primarily into the Gulf of Mexico and Mexico itself. Britain wants to watch us crumble, so that way they can be like, see this democracy? Stupid peasants. Kings only. I don't know where that came from, but let's just go with it, okay? So Europe wants to watch us fall because they want the Republican-style democracy to crash. And when we don't crash, it's like, man, now we gotta listen to the people again. Oh, fine, we'll make congresses. To make a long story short. So because of us surviving the Civil War, democracy as we know it in Europe starts building. And kings that had former power, dictators in Italy and Germany, are going to lose their influence, and democratic governments are going to become the dominant force.
Is that because the citizens wanted it? Or
Because the citizens wanted it, and basically they were saying, wow, look at how prosperous the United States is after the Civil War. Look at what they're doing. Holy cow, that could be us. Kings, you're holding us back. We want those civil liberties. That's one thing we don't recognize. I think we really take democracy for granted. You gotta realize, prior to us, in 1776, prior to us, there were two opportunities for democracy. Rome, right? Greece, okay, that did not go well. We really bring in the ideas of democracy with our awkward but well-functioning government.
So when was like the year or years when like the king and queen of England really lost their power and just became like,
They're going to lose their power really in the 1860s and 70s. Parliament, a prime minister, are going to take more and more and more power. So instead of them saying, we want to pass a law, Queen Victoria, does this work for you? They're now going to say, hey, Queen Victoria, we passed this law. What do you think? And she's either going to say, oh, that's delightful, or not, right? And that's basically what it comes down to. Whereas even 100 years ago, it was basically, hey, we were thinking about passing this law. How would it for you? No! Okay, that's cool. We'll just go back to like you would. Right? So, I mean, it's just within 100 years, really, England goes from a monarch-based Congress into the prime minister system that we think of today. Because I mean, right now, honestly, right now, the Queen's only job is to do the ceremonial things, still look like a queen, and every time there's an election, she christens the prime minister. She basically says, Prime Minister, blah, 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 make my government. And everyone's like, yeah, basically what happens. Go ahead.
So is the prime minister like?
Prime ministers are president. So the prime minister, in a parliamentary government, the prime minister is the speaker of the house and the president. But the person who does the ceremonial things is the king and queen of England. That makes sense? Whereas the president in our eyes, he's the president of the government, plus he's the ceremonial leader.
Where do they get their money from? The queen.
Did you see the one monarchy?
They have basically, now what they've done is they actually have to pay income taxes for the first time, and I think it was like 10 years ago. And more or less, the government gives the king and queen that much amount of money. The princes, they now actually have to do their own job. So like the prince was actually in, he was, I believe he was like a captain in the infantry for a while. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Okay. Everyone understand like the base of the parliamentary government? Yeah, it's pretty detailed. I was gonna say, if you're really interested, stay tuned for next year, man. Alright. So, let me get this going. So, Grant basically bumbles through his administration, and the Republicans are going to appoint another Civil War veteran. From 1868 with Grant, all the way to 1902 with William McKinley, all but one president will be Civil War veterans. We nicknamed this era the Civil War Presidents era. I know, really original names, okay? Samuel Tilden is going to be the Democrat, and Rutherford Rutherford, look at that delicious beard, Hayes, okay? Is going to be the Republican candidate. By the way, he's the last president to rock a full beard. A really good beard, okay? It goes into an electoral college tie. We haven't had that since 1800. What happens when there's electoral college tie? It goes to what body of Congress? House of Representatives or Senate? No chance. The House does, okay? And the House can't come up with who's going to be president. Now back then, the inauguration was not January 20th, but March 15th. And it's late February. And people start panicking, oh my God, is our government going to shut down because of this tie? No one can make a decision here. And there becomes a decision to make a secret committee to decide who's going to become the President of the United States. They choose 15 people, 8 Republican, 7 Democrat, and they're going to meet in a hotel. Okay? They hammer out this 2-day agreement, and they decide, we'll end Reconstruction in the South if Hayes becomes president. And it becomes known as the Compromise of 1877. There's a lot of compromises. We don't do that anymore. We don't do that.